Welcome to Southern Sense Talk on Rumble. You are going to love Annie the Radio Chick-A-Dee Ubelis and her co-host, C.S. Bennett. You'll find them live here on Fridays from 2:30 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Date Time. Check out their website at Southern Sense, as in commonsense.net. It's that easy, southernsense.net. So sit back and relax. They're informative, fun, irreverent, and politically incorrect. You never know where they'll go, but you'll love the journey.
Well, welcome to another adventure here on Southern Sense. You're watching live on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, X, Getter, my homepage, as well as Rumble. And the homepage is southernsense.net, as in common sense. And there goes my camera again. I told you, Curtis, it plays games. I mean, 1 minute it's full size, next minute it shrinks me out.
Oh, okay.
Oh, man. We got ourselves some great guests. We got our friend Mark Tapscott joining us today, barring any wackadoodle stuff going on in D.C. And then we're going to have Jay Beeber of the National Motorists Association joining us, and a special guest popping in. And we'll leave that hint for later on in the show. So we got a lot to talk about and a lot to do. I mean, Kash Patel was approved. His nomination was approved yesterday. So Kash Patel is now the head of the FBI. And of course, the left's head is exploding, and I'm loving it. I think that's just about all of his picks have been except for Matt Gaetz. Yeah, Matt Gaetz is the only exception to the rule at this point. But I mean, and every single one of his appointees have hit the ground running. No sooner are they sworn in, they are working. And that's the greatest thing. I mean, you talk to people on the street and there's a different atmosphere in the air. There's hope. People are hopeful. They're looking forward to the next coming several years.
Now, refresh my memory. Did Matt Gaetz, did he bail out or did he go?
No, he stepped aside, and then Pam Bondi stepped in, and she's doing a fantastic job. I mean, we're seeing how the agencies getting cleaned.
He's batting 1,000 now.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody that didn't make it.
I'm not exactly understanding what's going on with Ukraine. I get it, and I also don't get it. I mean, here we were supporting Ukraine in their fight against Putin, who's trying to resurrect the Soviet Union. And 1 minute we're all backing Ukraine, next minute we're not. I can understand we've given billions of dollars that has been unaccounted for. A lot of it's going to his cronies. A lot of it's unaccounted for. No one knows where the money has gone. I do believe it should be paid back. And whether or not we get it in rare earth minerals, I mean, as long as we get it back, I mean, that's the main point. I do agree that this war has to come to an end, a swift end. If this is what it takes to bring both sides, Putin and Zelensky, to the table, I guess this is the art of the deal. I'm confused, but yet I'm also beginning to understand where we're going with this. I don't know how anyone else there is feeling, but I'm like juggling a bunch of balls and just trying to figure out where they're going to land.
Well, I don't think this guy's helping himself, being a dictator, not having open elections, and can't account for $100 billion. And being a businessman, Trump sees this as, you might as well say just blood gushing out of a body, I mean, this money's just flowing in, and he's not really making any significant gains against Russia. It's almost like a stalemate between the two. And I just think he believes that it's gone on too long, and that we need to put an end to it, because we're pouring dollars into a country that looks like, it's had more than enough time to show that it could defeat
Yeah.
Putin. But and I do understand that Biden didn't give them everything they wanted and needed. He piecemealed a little bit of stuff out, but it's just dragged on too long. Costs us too
No,
much money.
it really has. And like you said, there's 100 billion out there that's unaccounted for, that's just evaporated into thin air, and that must be accounted for. And then the entire amount should be repaid to us.
Right.
We don't have empty pockets that you can pick empty here. The American taxpayer, needs an answer. And yes, this war has to come to an end. It's just that when we hear the rhetoric and you hear both sides of the media coming at it, it leaves the American public confused. And we need someone to stand up there and say, all right, fine, this is what we're going to do, X, Y, Z. We're forcing them to the table. And if it means that I have to sit down alone with Putin to hammer out some information and bring that back to Zelensky and say, hey, listen, this is what I come up with. Now let's work on this. And maybe that's what the end result is. But I think we need a clearer picture to understand where we're going with this.
And that's why I never took sides in this war, because it was so convoluted. But I do feel that Trump is afraid that if nothing is done, Putin's going to feel that he has no other option but to go nuclear, and that we don't want.
No, I mean, there's so many things going on in Europe at this moment. Germany, that used to be the leader in Europe, is now fallen to the wayside. Excuse me. They've had unrestricted immigration that is actually turning nations upside down. If I were to say something to you on social media that you may find offensive and it's posted on social media in Germany, I could end up behind bars. I mean, what has happened to the free speech we fought for? I mean, the same thing is happening in England, the lack of free speech. When you have fathers that are jailed for trying to rescue their daughters from being sexually groomed, there's something wrong here. And this is the England that gave us English common law, that gave us the Magna Carta, that gave birth to the pilgrims that brought over here the idea of a free America, freedom of religion and speech. I mean, the world has become so topsy-turvy that we could be on the brink of a third world war. And that's one thing we don't want to go. That's where we don't want to go. And if the hotbed is centered in Ukraine, then yeah, we need to see an end to this now. We need to stop it now.
Yeah, I believe there exists a soft form of socialism in Europe.
And Canada
For
now.
one, in England, you're not a citizen, you're subject. And that's on your passport. You're subject of the king or the queen. And they don't have the full rights we have. That's mandated in our Constitution. So, I'm not surprised that some of our people on the left want to compare Europe to us and how favorable they are to us, and we should follow their lead. And it's because they believe in that kind of socialism, whether soft or hardcore socialism.
There's so much here that we have to talk about. And like I said, we've got a lot going on with the show today. The one thing this has been bothering me because I love hockey. I love ice hockey. And last night I wanted to watch the Canadian and U.S. hockey game. Does anyone know what happened to the game? Because I didn't see anything on TV about it. I haven't checked the news.
Yeah, well, I watched the U.S. versus Canada up until the point it was like tied 2-2. And then I switched to something else, but we lost.
Oh, we lost? That's
we
a
lost
shame.
to Canada, yeah.
Oh, well. All right. I'm just trying to pull it up on Canada's ice win over. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. So it does look like we lost. Oh, well. 3-2. In overtime. All right. At least we gave him overtime.
I should have hung in there.
I'm gonna have to see if I can find it on replay.
Mhm.
Oh,
I
that's
think it
it.
was Connor McDaniel on the Canadian team
Uh,
scored the winning goal.
Well, all right. Well, then, that said, those that listen to the show that know that we start off each and every show with a dedication to a fallen hero. And today's dedication is going out to police officer Jeremy R. Labonte of the Roswell Police Department in Georgia. His end of watch was Friday, February 7th of 2025. And here is his dedication.
Funeral arrangements have been finalized now for Officer Labonte. Fox 5's Denise Dillon is live in Roswell tonight where tributes continue to pour in, Denise.
Yeah, just take a look at all the flowers that are piled up on top of this police cruiser. Throughout the day, I have seen families, officers from other cities, even a Boy Scout troop stop by to pay their respects.
We have such great respect for our Roswell policemen. They have always been there for us.
Longtime Roswell resident Kathy Savage and her husband came to the Roswell Police Department to leave flowers at this memorial for Officer Jeremy Labonte.
Such a sad time. Not a time that we wanted to be here.
The 24-year-old officer was killed in the line of duty. Investigators say Officer Labonte was responding to a suspicious person call at the shopping center when he was shot multiple times. Officer Labonte's uncle, who lives in Detroit, got word of the fatal shooting in a matter of hours.
My brother, which is his dad, texted me and knew something was wrong.
John Corson got on a plane and flew to Atlanta to be with his family.
It's rough for everybody. That's my brother's only son. He was a people person, and he loved serving his community.
His sacrifice will never be forgotten, and in the coming days, we will come together to pay our respects and celebrate his legacy.
There will be a public visitation Tuesday from 3 to 6 at Roswell United Methodist Church. Wednesday, community members are invited to line the streets for a funeral procession that will start at 1:45 at Lebanon Baptist Church and will travel to Roswell United Methodist Church for a 3 o'clock public funeral. A private burial service will take place Thursday.
Officer Labonte dedicated his life to serving and protecting the people of Roswell. And now we come together to honor him.
And city leaders are expecting so many people will want to come out to honor the life of Officer Labonte that they won't be able to fit into the church. So the service will be live streamed, and there will be locations throughout the city where people can gather together and watch it together. We'll have information on that on our website, fox5atlanta.com. Reporting live, Denise Dillon, Fox 5 News.
Yeah, they're probably right about expecting so many people. Denise, there's already been such an outpouring of support. Denise, thanks.
Well, a funeral service is underway right now for fallen Roswell police officer Jeremy Labonte.
The community is coming together to remember him after he was killed in the line of duty last week. Earlier today, a procession carried his casket to Roswell United Methodist Church. The streets were lined with people, even in the rain, coming out to pay their respects. 11 Alive's Molly Oak is live outside the church for us. Molly, what do we know about the service going on inside?
Well, guys, the funeral started about an hour ago, and I can say it's been an emotional couple of days here in Roswell, and those emotions still hitting very hard today. Even before the funeral, I want you to take a look at your screen at the procession that we watched driving by. It was tons and tons of law enforcement vehicles. Roswell police joined by officers from police departments and other law enforcement agencies from across the country coming to show their support. It truly seemed like a never-ending line of blue lights. Hundreds of law enforcement showing up today as they made their way inside Roswell United Methodist Church. While they drove by, they were met with salutes, hands over hearts, American flags, and solemn silence from people standing outside. Here's a look at what's happening inside as family, friends, and colleagues remember the 24-year-old police officer.
Jeremy was genuine. He was loving. He was thoughtful. He was encouraging. He was kind. He was fun and funny. He was respectful. I love Jeremy and his family. They've played an important role in my life. and in my family's life. I am grateful to have been a part in Jeremy's life and as he became a man that so many people knew and loved.
That was Pastor Joe Heyman. I also want to read some words from the mayor of Roswell about Officer Labonte. He said he lived with courage, he lived with honor, he lived with love. And that seems to capture the essence of Officer Jeremy Labonte. As we were stepping out to do this live shot, the Roswell police chief was beginning to speak. We'll have more from him and others who are expected to speak today coming up at 5 o'clock. For now, reporting live in Roswell, Molly Oak, 11 Alive News.
Molly, thank you so much for bringing that to us. And we do want to let all of you at home know that the funeral service is streaming right now on 11 Alive Plus. You can download the app on your TV to watch that service for free.
Let it be said, when we finish this race, we kept them free, we led with grace. Let it be seen, from sea to shining sea, beautiful America, living our legacy. Oh, father, mother, sister, brother, oh, we gotta learn to love each other. Oh, for the soul of the nation, for the next generation. Let us be known as people of honor, humble and bold, faithful through fire. Let us hold firm to our convictions with wide open hearts, eager to listen. Oh, father, mother, sister, brother, oh, we gotta learn to love each other. Oh, for the soul of the nation, for the next generation. Let us make room. Let us reimagine, welcoming voices with true compassion. Let's craft a world with hopes and dreams, challenges known and those still unseen. Oh, father, mother, sister, brother, oh, we gotta learn to love each other. Oh, for the soul of the nation, for the next generation. Let us be sure, when our time has come, we gave them hope, we made them strong. Let it be said, when we finish this race, we kept them free, yeah, we led with grace. Oh, father, mother, sister, brother, oh, we gotta learn to love each other. Oh, for the soul mother, sister, brother. Oh, we gotta learn to love each other. Oh, for the soul of the nation, for the next generation.
All right, and we are back. You're watching live Southern Sense on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, X, Getter, Rumble, and our homepage. If you go to Southern Sense, as in common sense, southernsense.net, you catch us there. I'm your hostess, the least mostest, Annie, along with my co-host, Curtis C.S. Bennett. You know, there's so much has been going on. Trump has been in office for 1 month and 1 day. Yesterday was his first anniversary, his first month anniversary. And I have never seen anyone take into office and accomplish as much as he has had in just 1 month.
70.
And it is
70 executive orders.
More than 70 executive orders. I think he signed, someone was telling me upwards around 600 of them. Every day he's signing new ones. Through DOGE, as of a couple of days ago, they've uncovered $55 billion in waste, fraud, and spending. That's more than $1 billion a day. You think about that. That's well above $1 billion a day that they've uncovered. And they're talking about going into the trillions, upwards to 7 trillion. Social Security alone, the fraud that they've uncovered in there. I'm sorry, I've never known a person to live to the age of 200 years old and collect Social Security. And tell me how we have close to almost 39 million individuals collecting Social Security that are between the age of, catch this, 0, meaning they're not even born yet, 0, and 9 years old. That's more than 1/3 of the American population that is under the age of 9 collecting Social Security. That the number doesn't jive. Does not jive. Now, I do agree that there are children that are getting certain Social Security benefits because of disabilities or other circumstances.
SSI.
Supplemental. I can understand that, but not upwards to the amount of 39 million. And how do you have someone over the age of 300 collecting Social Security? That's an impossibility.
Well, they'll tell you it's just a typo, slight error, 1 digit.
Yeah. And how about the number of people that are collecting Social Security that have no Social Security numbers?
And
that doesn't make any sense.
What about all the illegals
that are now collecting Social Security?
Yeah.
I mean, what they have uncovered is phenomenal. This U.S. aid, and I live in what's considered a small town, and there was a protest on President's Day. I heard from one person that drove through the area where the protest was, 25, 30 people. Our local leftist rag said it was 250 people. I think there's probably somewhere in between a number we can come up with, maybe 7,500, maybe, if that. But they had signs out there protesting the administration and saying, impeach Elon. Okay, he's not an elected official.
Nope.
He's not appointed to a government post. He is a civilian outside agency.
He's an advisor.
As an advisor to the president. How do you go about impeaching someone? You don't. You can't. And then there's others that are saying Elon, E-L-O-N, and then putting above it in the opposite direction, F-E-L-O-N. Elon is a felon. I'm sorry, that's libel. The man has not been convicted of any crime. He's not a felon. He's not a convicted felon. That is libel. So the richest man in the world can go after you for committing libel in public with those signs. And some of them were so very interesting. And then they dragged these people out of the woodwork to make it sound like their arguments have some gravitas. And I feel embarrassed for these individuals that they pulled out to make it sound like they have a valid argument, that it's not worth looking into government waste and fraud.
Well, fortunately,
Looking into saving us our tax dollars and making sure those tax dollars are spent where they're supposed to be, for the programs they're supposed to be, in a responsible manner.
fortunately, we have judges, even Democrat-backed judges, who have sided with the Constitution and said, hey, we don't have any constitutional grounds to block Elon and Trump from doing what they're doing. So they don't have a mountain to stand on, to tell you the truth, to fight this battle.
I mean, it's a simple document, folks. This is called the Constitution. It's a simple document. And in Article 2 of the Constitution, the president does have the right to control the spending. It's up to Congress to choose how to spend it and where to spend it. But then it's up to the president to make sure that it is spent responsibly. And if he turns around to Congress and says, well, you gave me too much money, well, that's to the taxpayers' benefit. And that is within Article 2 of the Constitution, that he's allowed to do that. If he feels that the money is being wasted and there's fraud involved in this, it is his job under Article 2 to control the spending. And it's up to Congress to control the executive branch on the spending. So they're saying, we're limiting your purse, we're giving you X amount of dollars. And if the president turns around and says, well, thank you for all this money, but I don't need all of it, so we're going to cut some of our expenses here and make it more responsible and trimline it, that's the way the system is supposed to work. It's called checks and balances, folks.
And when it comes to firing people, I mean, they stood behind Trump again, saying he has, as being the head of the executive branch, the right to fire people, even en masse. I mean, they do it all the time in the private sector. You go to work and you just notice that that's your last day.
Here we have someone who is a businessman running government like a business, looking for cost efficiency, the better bang for the buck. And that's what we want. That's what we have been begging for decades. And we finally have it. And all of a sudden, everyone is up in arms. And oh, by the way, folks, U.S. aid does not go to money being spent domestically here in the United States. The word AID, no, it's an acronym standing for Agency for International Development, international being the key word. It was originally meant to help Europe recover from World War II, to develop themselves economically, to be self-sufficient once again. It is not meant to give circumcisions to men in Mozambique. I'm sorry. That's not the intent. It's not meant to give transgender plays in some third world country. And it's not for developing the arts. It's to help a country develop economically. Now, when we're seeing billions of dollars going out on nonsense, on wokeness, I think we elected this president saying that woke does not work.
It doesn't, and it's not wanted. I've been following CPAC this week, and they're echoing the same sentiments that we are today. The Americans voted, and we're getting what we asked for, because
exactly
we demanded that Trump do something about the swamp, and he's doing it. And those who are putting up the biggest fight as on CPAC, Elon Musk said that it's the people who are the frauders. They're putting up the most resistance. And you can understand why, because they're being outed.
When it's being reported that Chelsea Clinton, her wedding was paid for through U.S. aid. When her mansion, what was it, $7 million, something like that, was paid for by the taxpayer dollars. I've got a problem with that. When you have people like Nancy Pelosi and Maxine Waters and others that go in middle American paychecks, all of a sudden now are multimillionaires, we're wondering where the money goes to. When the George Soros, his open society, benefits off of our taxpayer dollars, I've got a problem with that. What George Soros is one of the richest men in the world. What does he need with our taxpaying dollars? What grants? I mean, he's funding all of these protests across the nation anyway. And what is it with? Our taxpaying dollars? That we are wasting police and other emergency services to make sure that these protests remain peaceful? I'm sorry, we're getting hit twice. We're paying for these protests and we're paying for the security to prevent the violence from protests?
Not only that, why was Soros being honored by Biden? I mean, given the highest award, civilian award. This guy, he hates America.
He's looking to destroy us. And our taxpayer dollars are going to help do that. So yes, we need this exposed. We need this exposed. When we have Anthony Fauci openly working and trying to hide the fact that it is US dollars that went to the Wuhan lab to create the coronavirus. No, we need this exposed. And the best man to do that is the man of the hour, the one, the only, Mark Tapscott, senior congressional correspondent and editor at the Epoch Times. Or as I say, Epic Times.
Hello, Curtis.
How you doing?
Good to see you back, Curtis.
Yeah, it's always good to be back, have you on.
Good to be here. What are we talking about today?
CPAC and everything else.
CPAC, U.S. aid, and so forth. The uncovering of where some of this money is going through, like some of it going to George Soros and to the Clintons. And I'm sorry. Circumcisions to men in Mozambique and things like that. The transgender plays somewhere in South America or wherever else it's been. It's just the craziness. And then people are out there protesting with those signs. And I had my little time community here. They had a whole bunch of them out there with signs saying Elon felon, impeach Elon, President Musk, and things like that. And I'm just like, folks, don't you want your money spent responsibly?
Yeah.
Don't you want to make sure that when you write that check on April 15th to the IRS, your dollars are spent where you intend them to go?
Yeah.
And not on this nonsense to line a billionaire's pocket?
Yeah, absolutely. I tell you, the thing about the DOGE audits so far is they have confirmed that things in the federal government are just as bad as you thought they were and worse. You know, I mean, when you look at $4.7 trillion in treasury payments that they can't explain, who got that? Who got it? You know, I mean, it's.
You know, I mean, you know what it's like to run a business. I've run businesses. And when you write a check, you put down what the check is for, and you have to account for it in the books.
Yep.
You have to say what the expense is or what the payment out is for. You have to account for it. And if you don't, the IRS comes breathing down your neck with audits and penalties. So why aren't we demanding our government do the same?
Well,
what's the line item?
They come breathing down your neck unless your name is Hunter Biden. You know, then you're probably okay.
Yeah, I don't know where that came from.
Or the Clintons.
Nope.
Or the Clintons. Yeah, absolutely, the Clintons.
That foundation of theirs.
I mean, the stuff that is being uncovered is phenomenal. And Elon Musk had recommended the possibility of a rebate check to the American public. And all of a sudden, we're hearing from the left, who always clamored for these handouts from government to boost the economy. Oh, no, you can't do that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. When did the coin flip?
It's our money to begin with. See, that's the fundamental problem in the eyes of so many people in Washington. And this is not just Democrats now. There isn't a thing that is what you and I consider our money. There is the money that we send to the government that is the government's money. And, you know, if it's the government's money, then the government decides what to do with it. We don't really have much of a voice in that other than, you know, on election day. So there you go.
I mean, I've always said politics starts local, and whenever I hear something about government's money, I crack up, because I went a little head to head with one of my local councilmen at the time. I had been advocating for a traffic light at a certain dangerous intersection, and I'm driving through the intersection one day, and I see engineers out there and surveyors and everything else. I'm going, oh, maybe this is finally happening. So I pick up my phone, I speed dial my councilman. And I said, oh, by the way, Paul, what's going on at such and such intersection? Oh, we're doing a survey. And I said, is that for the traffic light? He goes, no, we're going to put up a traffic circle. And I said, really? And how much is that traffic circle costing us? Oh, $6 million. But don't worry, the state's paying for it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That's my money going to the state. And a traffic light costs $10,000. And occasional maintenance to it over the years, and you're asking for a $6 million traffic circle that also has to be maintained too over the same time period.
Yeah, and cost more.
And every time I go through that traffic circle, I can count easily just about when someone's going to get ready to hit my car.
Yeah.
Where a traffic light would have been so much safer.
That attitude where you really hear it epitomized is, you know, Trump has proposed not taxing waiters' tips, for example, and some other things.
Social Security.
Yeah, Social Security. During the debate, which went almost literally all night in the Senate last night, on the Senate's version of the budget reconciliation, you heard Democrat after Democrat say, well, you know, tax cuts are great, but we have to figure out a way to pay for them. What do you mean pay for them? It's our money to begin with.
Right.
You're just not taking it from us to begin with. So,
but also, tax Social Security. Wait a minute. I already paid taxes on that Social Security. And government held it for me without interest. Government earned interest on it. I didn't. And then I have to beg for them to give me my money back and then tax me on that money again.
Well, did you hear what
triple dipping?
Did you hear what your senator said, Lindsey? We got to pay down the debt
what would
first.
Lindsey Grabnisty say this time? Oh, please.
We got to pay down the debt first. We can't afford to give it to the people. We got to pay down the debt first. They weren't saying that the last 8 years.
Well, Mike Johnson said that too. He said, you know, rather than doing a DOGE dividend, we need to pay the credit card off. And you know, there's
a valid point to that.
Proof to that, absolutely, yeah. The government's in debt. The government needs to get out of debt. But then, more important, the government needs to make sure that it doesn't get back into debt down the road. You know, and that's where you have to wonder sometimes.
Well, the way I see it, they've been giving it to illegals. This one time they can give it to the people. There's people that suffered in the fires of California, North Carolina had the floods. They could use that money, you know.
Hawaii, they're still waiting for some.
Yeah.
And it's been 2 years now.
Yeah, Trump said that he's going to cancel the federal funding, or actually, Trump didn't say it. The Transportation Secretary, Sean
Duffy.
Yeah,
Duffy?
Sean Duffy. Yeah, I should know. Said he's going to cancel it, and you know, all kinds of people in California are protesting all of a sudden. And the obvious question is, would you rather have another $20 billion spent on a railroad that hasn't even laid the first rail yet, or $20 billion to help all those poor people whose houses were burned down rebuild. You know,
and the insurance companies will not cover either.
Yeah,
there you go.
It's crazy.
You know, it is crazy out there. I heard someone floating their possibility that 20% will be sent to the American public, 20% to pay down the debt.
Right.
So that leaves 60%. So what are you going to do with that?
Well, the idea, and that was Trump that said that on the Air Force One day before yesterday, I think. The idea is you apply that to that's money that you pull back, you don't spend it, and then you can spend it on something else. See,
emergencies maybe.
Yeah, emergencies, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Well,
I tell you, I was just yesterday, I was digging into some of the USAID grants. USAID was created to do things overseas. You know, it's a
international
tool, but they have been giving billions and billions of dollars for years to domestic non-government organizations,
NGOs.
I started digging into some of these, and one of them is Feeding America. It's a great, it's a great thing. They literally feed, they claim, they serve billions of meals every year to hungry people in America. Well, okay, that's a laudable goal. But then you look into their website and start digging into their the way they do this, and you come upon a section where they explain the reason we have so much hunger in America is because of capitalist oppression and because of systemic racism.
Indoctrination.
It is pure critical race theory, and we're paying for it. You know, that's how could that have gone on for so long without somebody in Congress saying, "Hey, wait a minute, we got to stop that."
They don't have the spine.
Don't have the spine. That's the problem.
And if you look into it, that how many agencies have failed their audits, not just once or twice, but for some of them 7 years in a row.
The Pentagon.
And they're wondering why we're screaming for accountability.
Yeah.
They wonder why.
Yeah.
And like I said, you have to hand it. Trump took a lot of time to figure out who he was going to place where.
Yes,
he had a lot of years to think about it, what he did wrong in the first term and how he was going to undo all of that. And every last one that has been approved has hit the ground running.
Yes.
Seconds after being sworn in, not
it's amazing.
Hours, not days, seconds after. I mean, Sean Duffy was a perfect example. No sooner was he sworn in, he was there in the middle of the floods. You got to hand it to that guy.
You know,
Pam Bondi.
Before I became a journalist, I was on the Reagan transition team in 1980 after the 80 election. And, the Reagan team was pretty well prepared, but boy, we weren't anything like what the Trump people are doing.
Mark.
Yeah.
I've heard from Sunday morning pundits and things like this that Trump has been putting this in place for the last 4 years, maybe longer. They had a plan for what to do every day. Do you go along with that? Because it seems like a well-oiled machine.
I don't know if every day, but they certainly have
just hit them so hard.
They had a plan for every executive order, and every one of the cabinet secretaries, like Annie just mentioned about Sean Duffy, they had their plans in hand. 5 minutes after they were sworn in, boy, they were over there saying, "Okay, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And we're going to fire him." And there you go.
The marching order.
Well, one of the other things is we got Kash Patel was finally yesterday. Was it J.D. Vance swore him in, I believe it was.
No, it was Pam Biondi, I think, the attorney.
Oh, all right. But
I think.
Here we go. Mitch McConnell, and I kind of like dropped the M off of Mitch and put a B in front, is not going to run for re-election. Oh my goodness. Are we going to actually see in these midterm elections a return of more conservatives to Senate and the House?
My personal opinion is that I think the odds are very good that come November 26, the people are going to be saying to themselves, we want more of this, and they're going to vote for more Republicans. Kentucky's kind of an odd state. It can be a toss-up sometimes. In fact, it can be a toss-up frequently. So, I wouldn't assume that McConnell will be succeeded by a conservative Republican, but he very well may be. I wouldn't be surprised if he is.
Well, then again, Kentucky Fried Chicken has left Kentucky and has gone to Texas.
Well,
So
all smart
maybe there's a hint there.
Yeah. I think
Mark,
Trump will be working Kentucky between now and then.
I think so.
That's all.
I think they should. I smell a rally coming. I smell a rally coming. But Mark, it's always a pleasure having you with us. And between you and I wish you a good luck next week with what you have coming up. You will be in our prayers. All right. So until then, we'll see you in 2 weeks.
The 4 words about next week: thy will be done.
Done.
Amen.
And that's a huge amen. Thank you. God bless. Mark Tapscott. And also mention that you also have hillfaith.blog. Check out hillfaith.blog. I see you always have to slap me around. Tell me once in a while to remind you. Thanks. I felt that.
Later.
Mark. God bless. Take care. Mark Tapscott. Now we got to bring our next victim in onto the stage. Let's bring in Jay Beeber of the National Motorist Association. Good afternoon, Jay. How are you doing?
Hey,
Good afternoon. Nice to see you again.
It's my pleasure. My camera is again acting up. Every time I move my cursor, the camera goes in and out, and I don't know why. Anyway, I have to be honest. I was talking to Kim via email earlier. Mm-hmm. So if anyone wants to go to your website, you are having a problem with it at this point.
Yeah, I think we got that fixed.
Okay, good. Because I'm looking and seeing I'm banned.
No, it's weird that there was this weird plugin, and I went in, I turned off the plugin. It was a plugin that stops bots. I don't know anything about this, but it's a plugin that stops bots. And I turned it off, and Kim said she can get in. So I guess it should be fixed. So.
Well, fantastic. Because actually, when I was pulling my notes from last night from your website, I had to go on my cell phone. It's the only way I got up.
Weird. I have no idea. Well, we turned the plug-in off, so I'm hoping not too many other people experience that. But it was intermittent. It wasn't everybody. So, we never had the problem.
Strange.
I don't know.
That's strange. Now, to tell people exactly what the National Motorist Association is and how are you different, say, from AAA or from AMAC? They have their own motorist thing that I belong to. How is yours different? What are you more advocating for that they're not doing? Okay,
well, compared to AAA, we're actually protecting motorists.
Anything's better.
so that they're an insurance company, so their interests are not necessarily aligned with motorists across the board. They like to say they're the motorist friend. They're not. We are the only national organization that fights for your right every day to go where you want to go, when you want to go, how you want to go, free from unreasonable government intrusion in your life, unreasonable spying on you, unreasonable ticketing, unreasonable costs and penalties, and all these kinds of stuff. So that's what we are. That's what we do every day. So we're the motorist friend.
Well, it's funny. The only time I got a red light traffic ticket was, believe it or not, crossing in Queens, New York, and I was heading to my precinct to report for duty. And that's one of the things that you advocate for by removing these traffic light summonses.
Yes. Yeah. So here's the thing about automated enforcement is that the systems are designed to exploit flaws in the engineering of our world, of our systems. And so, for example, with red light cameras, when the yellow light time on the traffic signal is not long enough, and you can debate what long enough means, you're going to have a lot more red light running. You're going to have a lot more fraction of a second violations, which don't actually cause a dangerous situation, but they can be picked up by these cameras because they're perfect enforcement systems, just like a photo finish at a horse race. And so they can ticket a lot of people for really minor violations, things you can't even see with the naked eye. And that's where they make all their money. Or for minor violations like a rolling right turn, which is, you can't do that in any of the 5 boroughs, but in most of the country you can turn right on red. If your wheels don't stop turning, they call this a rolling right turn. And so that's usually an incredibly minor violation. Usually there's nobody around anyway to even be remotely put in danger. But in California, it's a $500 ticket. So this is the kinds of things that we fight against, which is, if you're going to have enforcement, we prefer to be live police officers. They have judgment and discretion. Otherwise, you just have a camera that's sitting there whose job it is to ticket people all day long. And if there's somebody even looking at the stuff, they're basically sitting behind a desk, clicking a mouse all day long. Yep, that was a violation. Yep, that was a violation. There's no discretion involved. And again, like I said, these systems tend to pick up violations that the human eye, especially with red light cameras, can't even perceive. So the blink of an eye is 0.4 of a second, and a lot of these tickets are like 0.2 of a second. So you're talking about literally the half of a blink of an eye.
Now, whenever I went to traffic court, I would have to turn around and testify that what the timing of the light was. How many seconds or minutes did it remain green? How many seconds or whatever was it in the yellow caution before it turned to red? And how long and you had to testify to that.
Right.
So I can understand that. And that's why it bothered me that I got this ticket. And again, you say within a blink of an eye, 0.2 of a second is a big difference than if the yellow remains for 15 seconds.
Right. And I would argue, and I don't know what the situation was at the exact location, but I would argue that the yellow light time was not sufficient to ensure that a reasonable driver wouldn't get tagged with a ticket. And that's really where we make the argument, because you can't have a perfect yellow time, because the yellow light time is based on a whole bunch of variables. And so it's the speed that you're traveling on the roadway, your perception reaction time, what kind of vehicle you're driving, and how hard that vehicle brakes, and how you feel comfortable about that. So there's all these things that go into how long that yellow light time needs to be. And it can't be perfect, because you can't have exactly the same number for everybody. No. So you have to have a reasonable number, and that's a range. And what they tend to do is they tend to put the yellow light time at the lower end of that range so they can generate more tickets. And so even though you could take that same location that you got that ticket and increase by 0.5 second, and I don't know how many tickets they were issuing. We saw this in California. You increase by 0.5 second, a second. Again, we're talking really small periods of like back. That's a second, okay? So we're talking about really short periods of time, and you could cut your violations by 90, 95%, but they don't do it because they want the revenue. So it's about generating revenue, and that's why we object to these.
Jay.
Yeah. I would also add that it doesn't take into account the fact that your wheels may have been over the stop line prior to the light turning also. So once you're inside the intersection, you are now committed to whatever action you're supposed to be taking. Go ahead, Curtis.
And I was going to address that, because here in Florida, we had a couple of years ago red lights in a couple of counties, if not all of Florida. And we got rid of it because they found out it was causing more accidents than anything. I mean, think about this. You're going 45 miles an hour. You get up to an intersection, and then all of a sudden that light turns on you. And do you go through and risk getting a ticket, or do you slam your brakes and get rear-ended?
And have the person rear-end you behind you.
That was happening a lot, so we got tired of it.
Right. And what you're describing, there's actually a name for that. It's called the indecision zone. And this is because traffic lights can't have a perfect yellow light time. So think about this. You're approaching a traffic signal. You're far away in the distance. The light turns yellow. You're going to stop. Because by the time you get there, that light's going to be red. It's going to be red for a little while. You're going to start slowing down. You're going to stop, right? You're up close to the intersection, the light turns yellow. You're going to keep going because there's no way you have enough distance to stop. It's in that middle ground where people have the problem. That's where all the tickets are issued, because you don't always know what the perfect choice is, and that choice as to whether you should stop or go changes instantly depending on where you are on the roadway. So I'll give you just some numbers just so people can kind of picture this a little better. If you're traveling at 35 miles an hour, when you assume that people have a 1 second reaction time and they're going to decelerate at 10 feet per second per second, right? So that's the deceleration. Making those assumptions, the distance that you will take your car to stop is 183 feet. If you are behind 183 feet, you don't know that you are, but if you're behind 183 feet, theoretically, you have enough roadway to stop, you're supposed to stop. If you're in front of that 183 feet, even by 1 foot, you theoretically don't have enough distance to stop before you cross that line and enter the intersection. So you should be able to keep going. That yellow light has to stay on long enough to get you there. But that 183 feet, you don't know where that is. You don't know on the particular roadway that you're driving on that, I'm at that, what we call the indecision zone. That's what we call the critical distance. You don't know that. Every time you encounter a traffic light, you have to make a decision and say, do I brake or do I keep going? And so what we encourage people to do, because you don't know whether they set that traffic light to have tolerance in it. So if you make a mistake, no matter which way you go, you don't get a ticket, right? If you go to stop and you didn't need to stop, right? You don't want to get rear-ended by somebody. On the other hand, if you go, but you should have stopped, we don't want you to, by a fraction of a second, have made that mistake and get that $500 ticket. So the idea is you have to build tolerance into the system, and you have to be able to not ticket people who aren't doing anything that's intentional or really, dangerous or something like that. You want to save your enforcement or police officer. You want to save your enforcement for the people that are out there actually doing something that's dangerous, not your typical person that's just trying to get around and makes a mistake here and there, because everybody makes mistakes all the time. And if you followed somebody around with a camera all day long, you would find these mistakes. Nobody wants to live in a society, because there are societies like this on the planet, in which you're followed around, you're surveilled all the time, and every time you do something wrong or you make a mistake or whatever, you get out of line, the government comes down on you. Okay. My feeling is this: if you like automated enforcement, you want them everywhere, you will love North Korea. You will love living in China. So go there.
Well, one of the things that you also talk about on your website is the freedom to move wherever you want to go. Mm-hmm. And there's been a heavy push by the previous administration for the EVs.
Yes.
But they're limited in range. Yes. They take a long time to charge. Mm-hmm. Whereas if I'm going to take a long distance ride, I'd probably strap a can of gas to the back of my car and keep on going and not have to worry. The EV charging stations are few and far between. And if you do find one, they're heavily occupied, or someone's stealing it from your house, if you have one at your home.
Exactly.
So, where do you see us going with these EV mandates?
Well, the new administration has started to curtail this. I mean, one of the first acts that Sean Duffy, as the new head of the Department of Transportation, the new secretary, one of his first orders was that they review what they call the CAFE standards. Now, CAFE standards are the standards on what kind of gas mileage you should have. So they're the corporate average fuel economy standards. That's what CAFE stands for. And so the Biden administration had upped these to like 50 miles per gallon is the standard. Now, a gas car in today's day and age, even though they're much better than they used to be, my car got 10 miles per gallon, right? Most cars now get 20, 25 kind of on average. But you can't get to 50 with the technology that exists today, right? So the only way you could get there is if on average, that average in that term, is that you start selling zero emission vehicles, and then you average those in, and you can now get to the standards that the government imposed on you. And so that was sort of this backdoor mandate that, if you're going to build cars and you're going to sell them, you got to build and sell a whole bunch of electric vehicles that are zero emission in order to get to these standards with all the gas fueled vehicles that people actually want to buy. And so this is why they were losing tons and tons of money, and all this stuff was a problem. And so they placed an order to say, we're going to review these standards and maybe roll them back to previous administrations where they were a lot more reasonable, that you could actually get to those standards with just fuel vehicles. But when we talk about electric vehicles, we really should even back up further, and we should talk about the fact of the question of, are they even better for the environment than a gas fuel vehicle? And it's not really clear that they are, because you can talk about the environment as a whole, but let's just take the one section that everybody focuses on, which is greenhouse gas emissions, carbon, right? If you look at the entire life cycle of an electric vehicle, and especially because of the battery, because the rest of the car is almost the same, right? The engine, one's an electric motor, one's an engine. Okay, it's a fuel tank versus a battery. That's the difference between the vehicles. The necessity of what you have to do and the amount of carbon emissions it takes to mine everything that you need to create those batteries offsets any benefit to some extent that you would get from not having any emissions come out of the tailpipe if there was one. So when you look at the entire life cycle of a gas vehicle as opposed to an electric vehicle, and compare their lifespans and all of this kind of stuff, you do that calculation, it's not even clear that even just for carbon emissions, an electric vehicle is better. Now, if people like electric vehicles and they want them, they should drive them. That's fine. Nothing wrong.
It should be freedom of choice, but not a mandate.
To mandate something that, whether it's a direct mandate or a backdoor mandate, to mandate something that's not even clear is a benefit to society is just ideological. And that's why we're very happy to see a rollback of a lot of these types of things. And we hope that they will also take away California's permission to have a higher standard than the rest of the country, because, as you know, that's the tail that wags the rest of the dog in the rest of the country. So.
Well, with that said, let's bring on our other special guest today, popping in for a quick little hi and stick around with us for a little bit. Former Congressman Ted Yoho. Good afternoon, Ted. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Mr. Beeber. Great to see you.
Great to see you.
Yeah, I'm doing good.
You know, the one thing I do agree with, Jay, that you're saying that we need to have California reverse their standards, moreover with trucks.
Yep.
And this is what they have, the only standard in the country that mandates that their trucking industry must be electric, which makes moving goods from shore to shore, port to port, difficult. Because now once you hit that California line, you've got a whole nother standard and you can't cross over.
Right. And there's a lot of folks that are saying, we're just not going to sell these in this state, because they can't get to that standard. And again, it's just ideological, because when you look at the data, it really isn't that much of a benefit. And here's the thing, if it was a benefit, if it was cheaper, if it was better for goods movement, they would adopt it. You wouldn't need mandates. You wouldn't need, subsidies or any of this kind of stuff, because the free market would determine it, and the free market would help promote this completely.
Go ahead, Ted.
You're from California, right? LA area?
Well, I live there. I'm originally from New Jersey. Now I live in Phoenix. So.
Okay.
Oh, there's not much difference between Jersey and California. My mom's from there.
On that point there about the benefit to the environment, Tom McClintock, I served with him in Congress. He's from California.
Yep.
He's on the Natural Resources Committee. I would encourage anybody that wants to get the fact about what it costs and the pollution and the amount of mining they have to do to make one battery, right, and the benefit of that compared to driving a fossil fuel. He's very constitutional and he's very pragmatic.
Tom is a good guy, and I'm going to give you the statistic on that, okay, which is that I actually have it right here next to me, okay. Right. A typical electric vehicle battery is about 1,000 pounds. You have to mine 500,000 pounds of rock in order to make one, okay. So even if they were able to impose these mandates, okay, and say, you know what, starting at such and such a date, every vehicle sold in the United States is going to be electric. You can't mine enough minerals around the world in order to build that many batteries. It's impossible. It's an impossible standard to get to.
It is.
And
now they're doing the deep sea mining, which is really degrading the planet and the coral reefs and that. And it's nonsense. It's lunacy is what it is.
Right. Well,
it's strip mining to begin with.
Right.
So there's no reclamation of the land in the end. I mean, you can reforest a forest, but you can't reland the mine. Not only that, they are also hazardous waste. So once the life of that battery is over, how do you dispose of it?
Right. Well, but just think about the carbon emissions of all of the heavy vehicles, which are all, carbon spewing vehicles, because you can't have electric vehicles doing this mining, right? Because they don't exist. And they don't have to do it. So all of that mining, and then a lot of them are created in other countries. So you have to ship that 1,000-pound batteries or the hundreds of thousands of batteries that you would need. And what are they going to be shipped on? They're going to be shipped on carbon spewing vehicles, big tankers and whatnot. Those are not electric. So, I mean, the whole thing is just silly. And then when you get into the power generation, in most of the country, it's still natural gas, coal, and that sort of thing. You can't have enough what they call renewable, which are not really renewable, but intermittent type energy sources that would be able to power all these vehicles. It's just an impossibility. So this is why we like to say that these people are reality deniers. They like to say people are like are climate deniers or whatever this silly term is. These are reality deniers. They deny reality.
Well, we cannot produce enough electricity to charge as many vehicles as they want us to purchase. Right. And we have a hard time right now with the expansion of AI to produce enough electricity to do those centers. How are we going to do that now for electric vehicles?
Right. And then all the other electric stuff they want you to have. So stoves, heating units, everything has to be electric, okay? Because all of a sudden electric is the new fetish. And so they have to, in order to generate that much electricity, it's an impossibility. And yes, you're right. With AI, this is why they're talking about we have to have these small nuclear facilities all over the place, because that's how we're gonna generate that energy. But it's you have to actually look at facts, okay? And facts are what they are. You can wish them away as much as you want, but they eventually come back and they smack you in the face, and that's what we're looking at right now.
Jay, do you have any stats on how long it takes to put out a fire on an electric car?
I don't specifically, but I know that an electric vehicle, because it's generally a lithium battery, is much more difficult to put out and much more dangerous in terms that it burns hotter, and it'll melt the roadway before you were able to put that out. So look, electric batteries in scooters, okay, which are much smaller, are starting and killing a whole bunch of people in New York City, because they're taking these scooters and they're putting them in the basement or putting them in the lobby or whatever, and then they're catching fire overnight and they're burning down the building. So, and again, I have nothing against scooters, okay, but let's just be real in the fact that when you look at the entire thing, there are trade-offs in life. There are always trade-offs in life. There is no such thing as utopia. And these people believe in utopia, and, they're insane.
I just can't see myself strapping on a scooter with electric battery between my legs and having that battery go off. It's not an area I want to get burnt in,
Right.
much less the fact I'm not even a man. I can't imagine you doing it. What a thought. Only I would come up with that idea, right? But what I'm seeing with this administration, the movement now in the energy field, where we see now that opening back up the talks for the pipelines, and more drilling, offshore drilling, and things like that, more going towards fracking, turning around saying that the administration from executive orders cannot cancel these contracts, these leases that we put out, like Biden had been doing, canceling the lease right away, so you can't even explore.
Right. You're going to see a change in that. I mean, those will be challenged in court. What everybody needs to think about in Congress, and I'm talking about the people that support them in the constituency, is there should be a policy for the United States of America. Our policy is to have energy security, energy
independence.
Security. And be independent of any other country. That should be the policy of the United States, and you've got a list. You know, fossil fuels, you can go down wind, solar, nuclear, all of those. Those are your options. The goal is national security. That should be the goal of the United States of America. And both sides should agree to that, where you don't get a president that comes in and says, we're going all green. And more importantly, in the rest of the world, when he was using USAID and other things we do in development, it was all green mandates in countries that can't afford green mandates. Of course, we're paying for them, and they're not going to allow for a generation of 24/7 energy. So those countries will never get out to where they're independent. So we need to have energy security and independence as the policy of the United States. And if Congress would come together and write, these are the policies of the United States, and allow an administration to tweak them as needed, or in times of war, they can override them, but it shouldn't go back and forth. And the case in point of what I'm trying to get across here is, if you look at the JCPOA, which was the Iran nuclear deal, and the Paris Climate Accord. All right, Obama puts us in both. Trump takes us out of both. Biden puts us back in both. Trump takes us out of both. Stand back as an adversary or an ally and look at America. They're saying these people are crazy. They don't know what they're doing. And again, policy should be the policy of the United States of America, not the policy of a Democratic or political party. It's time for us to come together as Americans.
Well, you said something critical. Congress come together.
I was going to say exactly the same thing. I was thinking exactly the same thing.
Come together right now.
Wait, Ted, you were a congressman, right? So,
yeah.
So you know the reality of that.
Because I came from the far right Tea Party. You know, I was, as John Boehner said, I was in his book, I was one of the crazies. And, actually, I think he said that guy is crazy. And so, as conservative as I was, if you look at my Florida voting record, it said I was the most conservative member of Florida, but yet I was the most bipartisan, because I could come together and I could get people to come with me on certain issues. And that's what we need in there, is people that are looking at the nation, not at their next election, or looking at what the political party tells them to do. And as anybody that knows my history, I had to tell my leadership that first week I was up there, when they told me I had to raise $300,000 and some to the NRCC for the Republican Party. I said, let me remind you, I said, I've been through the Constitution several times, and it doesn't say I work for you. And I said, I don't work for you. I don't work for a party. I work for the people that sent me here. So
yes, that's a huge amen.
Well, we need more people in Congress that think that way. Unfortunately. I'll let you finish that thought.
No, that's all I got to say.
Well, just moving back to the energy issue just a little bit, because it's great to see the pipelines being done, great to see more exploration, great to see the release of the leases. But what we do not have is a new refinery. No new refineries have been built since the 1970s. So what is the point of doing all this exploration if we're just going to ship our oil to a foreign country to be refined and then returned back to us?
Yeah, do you think there's a chance of being indebted to that country? And
you mean like India or China, or what's that country down in South America we have a problem with?
And again, you look at what Biden did. He hamstrings American in our production, and inflation takes over, because fossil fuels control everything in our economy. And yet he releases, the sanctions on Venezuela and Iran so that they can sell oil to China, and then we start buying it from one of those countries. I think it was Iran, or we opened up their market, and it was ludicrous because we're empowering people around us that don't like us, and we're making ourselves weaker.
It's almost as if you don't like America and don't want us to succeed. Sounds like what you're describing.
Flynn, I asked General Flynn when Obama was in there and it was in the Foreign Affairs Committee. It was some of the policies Obama had. I said, General, I'm struggling with why he's doing that, because it would be either out of ignorance, out of dereliction of duty, or by design. And he goes, it's absolutely by design. And I said, why? He goes, he hates America. He wants to bring it down. And unfortunately, we have the past administration was the same way. And Jay, you brought up something as I came on about the surveillance state. There's a great book I reference. It was written by Chris, who was a classmate of mine in Congress. It's called The Miracle of Freedom, the 7 Tipping Points That Saved the World. Just real briefly, out of that, the anthropologists in that book have estimated there's been 100 billion people that have ever lived on our planet. 100 billion. Out of that, they estimated that only 4.5%, which would be 4.5 billion people, have ever lived in the liberty and freedom we have today. The amazing part of that is 80% of us are alive today. That's how fleeting liberty and freedom is. And then you brought up the surveillance state of China. China has what they call the good citizen score, where they score everything. If you walk across and jaywalk or throw stuff out, they know about it. And they'll shut your banking account down, that you can't get gas, you can't travel. They have taken that technology and they're going all around any country that will accept it through ZTE or Huawei cell phones, that technology. And ZTE in Venezuela has got the Maduro regime not indebted, but using that. And they've got a card, it's called the Fatherland card, that tracks everything you do in society. And if you don't have a Fatherland card, you get dinged everywhere. Like going to the doctor, one guy went to the doctor and he said, "Where's your Fatherland card?" He goes, "I'm not getting one." And the doctor wouldn't treat him. That's what's going to happen if we don't get the direction of this country going the way it's supposed to be. You've got 2 choices. Liberal democracies like we have in most of Europe and several other countries, or you have authoritarianism, communism, and that's what China, Russia, and Iran, and all those other countries like North Korea are offering. It's a simple choice. It's worth fighting for, and we need to stick together and make sure the good guys win.
Yeah, and that's why we do what we do every day, because we believe in the freedom. Look, if you can't get around, if you can't go where you need to go, you can't exercise almost any of your other freedoms. And freedom, this is the thing that I like to explain to people who don't really understand this stuff is, well, it's not just about what you get to do, the end result. Freedom in and of itself is a good. It is a benefit. The fact that you get to choose which hamburger you buy, or which car you buy, or where you go today as opposed to where you go tomorrow. In terms of the human spirit, that is a good unto itself. This is something that I think people really just don't get, because they think about the end result. They think about, well, it's good because I like this car over that car. The fact that you get to make the choice is the good, not necessarily the outcome, because sometimes you make a bad choice, right? But the fact that you get to make that choice, you maybe sometimes make mistakes, and then you can correct and you can self-correct, then that's what lets the human spirit flourish, as opposed to somebody telling you what you need to do every day.
You said the important word, human spirit, because I call it the freedom of the human spirit. It gives us the freedom to think differently, to choose differently, to not be dictated that what my internal wants or needs are mine, unique to me, to not place that above anyone else. Hey, I can turn around and feel I'm the best thing since, sliced bread. However, everyone feels the same way in some shape or form. But that's the beauty of the human spirit, to each and every one of us to be unique, to have our own personal choices, and that one size does not fit all, like it does in China or any of the other communist regimes. I'm free to choose who to worship, who to love, where to live, what to wear, what to think, and what I choose to learn.
Freedom.
Freedom to try and fail, or to try and succeed.
And that's what gets us the benefits of society. That's what the free market does, whether it's a free market economically or free market ideas, is the chance to try things and then fail and then learn from them. Because otherwise, all you get is what one small group of people or one person thinks is the right thing, and that never changes. And that's usually, I'm describing the government, but go ahead.
That's an innate thing we're all born with. That's the way God designed it. That's the way the universe designed it. Being on foreign affairs, I got to meet people from all over the world, from Muslim leaders and prime ministers to, authoritarian dictators. And I asked them the same thing. I assume people in your country what we want. We want the right to choose liberty and freedom. We want security. We want a better life for our kids. Every one of them said that. That's innate in us. Our founders got it right in their documents. And it amazes me that we see people willing to cede that, give it up to an authoritarian regime, whether it's our government or somebody else. I had, if you go back to Obama, remember when he said, nobody needs to make over $250,000.
Right.
Nobody needs to make that. Yet he lives in multi-million-dollar mansions around the world.
Right. Well, I've had friends, they're liberal, right? And they've said similar things, right? And my answer to them is, A, what gives you the right to decide that? And B, okay, what do you do for a living? Oh, I'm an artist, I'm a musician, I'm a whatever, okay? How would you like it if I told you as a musician or as an artist, you can't sell your whatever for the price that you want to sell it for, that you think it's worth, that somebody's willing to buy it for? I get to decide what you get to sell it for. How would you like that? Oh, no. It's just the rich people that I want to control. So it's always somebody else. And here's what I say, which is that there are not too many things in life that you can be 100% sure of. Here's something I'm 100% sure of: that you know how to live your life better than I know how to live your life, and vice versa.
Good, I like
Jay, you said something earlier about how some of our leaders seem to hate America.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sad, but I think in their mindset, they feel that the United States has an unfair advantage over other countries. So they have to level the playing field, and I think that's why, they carry on the way they do. I don't know if they hate us so much, but they just think that we have an unfair advantage.
Well, we do have an unfair advantage. It's called freedom. That's the unfair advantage that we have. Okay, we have a constitution that protects and limits, at least in theory, what the government is supposed to do. That's our unfair advantage from everybody else. And if everybody else adopted that, then they'd have the same advantage.
And it's like they never learned that, though. That part of it.
because ideologically they feel guilty and they're ungrateful for what they have.
Harvard, Princeton, all those graduates.
And they're taught this nonsense in colleges.
Well, hopefully we're going to get rid of a lot of this stuff with the removal of DEI, and some of these colleges are going to see their funding decrease. It used to be at one point, college campuses were the place of debate, of open discussion.
Mm-hmm.
But now you must think exactly like everyone else thinks. You must walk in lockstep. And that is so very un-American. And it's about time we bring American ideology back to our universities and colleges and other areas of learning, and keep them out of the boardroom.
And Ted, what are your thoughts on us continuing to fund NPR and PBS?
I don't think they should.
And they're so one-sided.
I think I like the fair market, the free market, and if they want to fund it for national weather emergencies and missing children and things like that, that's fine. But if you're going to go on there, if we're going to do that, which number one, I don't think we should do that. Number two, when that started, that was put out there for people that couldn't, get stations otherwhere, and it was a way for the government to kind of talk to people in this country. But it's become a channel
Propaganda.
for left-wing ideology.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you were talking a little bit before about the having everything having to be sort of equitable, and everybody they want to make everything equal and all this kind of stuff. And there's actually something happening in roadways which is like this. And there's actually the end of the story. There's a good thing. So let me explain this. So there's something called complete streets. This is the ideology that everybody that we have to build streets for everybody. It has to be equitable for everybody, right?
I'm battling my county over this. Oh, you're talking about multi-use walkways, pathways, and alongside.
They call it multimodal. So I was having a conversation. There's a thing called the Transportation Research Board meeting every January that I go to in DC, and I was having a conversation with some of these folks from the former administration, from Federal Highway Administration, and they're like touting the fact that they're like, we are now building, we've changed our focus. We're building roadways for everybody. So it's equitable for everybody. And I'm like, well, first of all, this sounds like socialism for roadways. And second of all, it's like, no, what you should be doing is you should be building roadways for 90% of the people who use it, which is motorized vehicles. Okay. So it's cars, trucks, buses, and motorcycles. Okay, not for people on bicycles. Okay, you can't take away car lanes and impair everybody's ability to get around. Okay, because you have some equity ideal that that these people are disadvantaged in some way. 90% of the people get around by cars and plus, and that's the way we should build our roadways. And this other idea is nonsense. So here's the good thing, okay, which I promised a good thing, which is after Sean Duffy was sworn in, within a few days, they removed the website from DOT that was about complete streets. So I'm hoping there's going to be a turn here. The other thing that, by the way, that what they took down was the website in equity in roadway safety. So that one also came down. So there's good things happening. There's a lot more that has to come down. There's a lot more house cleaning that they have to do at the house there. But I think we're moving in the right directions finally.
People don't realize how, you're spot on that. I was at the UN General Assembly a couple years ago, and there was our representative that was nominated by Trump to be on the World Bank. He came up to me, he saw us in Congress. He starts yelling at me. What in the blanket? He was using some explicatives. What's wrong with you people? He goes, I just came from the World Economic Forum on transportation and roads. Right. And he says, that group says we have to build gender neutral roads. A mandate coming from the United States going out to the rest of the world when we're using money to build roads in other nations. Gender neutral roads. And then of course he goes off on a tirade. What is the blankety a gender neutral road? Is it this many LGBTs and transgenders going to work on it, or what? He goes, I don't know what it is, and they're laughing at us around the world. That was probably 6 years ago, and it got worse under the Biden administration.
Right.
Well, we're down to our last few minutes, gents. It has been a blast. Ted, it's always fun to have you on. We love having you with us. Jay, always telling people to go to motorists.org. To find your website, which should be up and running. The National Motorist Association. So thank you, and we welcome you back anytime. Ted, we love you.
Anytime. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, take care.
Nice to see everyone.
Curtis, always good to see you looking better.
Always.
Okay. Here we go. We'll be back next week. We have Bill Walton with us. He has his own podcast too. Also, we have Dr. Robert Malone. The infamous doctor that broke it on COVID. So we'll be back, same bat time, same bat station next week. So until then, we say good night and God bless. And that's, here we go. I'm hitting the right key and I can end.
I'm praying for this land I love, America, America, the home of the free. But there are people making plans to change America. They've no respect for her or what matters most to me. That's why I stand for the flag and I kneel at the cross. Long for the friends I have loved and lost. And I still believe with God we trust, and the freedom our forefathers granted us. America. Do you hear our battle cry across America? We've got to rescue her. You know it's up to me and you to see the truth behind their lies. Don't change America. God bless America and the red, white, and blue. That's why I stand for the flag and I kneel at the cross. Long for the friends I have loved and lost. And I still believe in God we trust and the freedom our forefathers granted us. I hope it's not too late to save America. For the friends we have loved and lost, and we still believe in God we trust, in the freedom our forefathers granted us. We know it's not too late to save America. Save America. Let's save America. Together we can save America.